ladies, how's it going, and welcome back to a difficult video. This is something that's really hard to talk about, but it has been requested by one of you, so we are more than happy to dive into this sensitive topic. So today we're talking about when you don't get on with other Christians. So this video is from the point of view of you being a Christian and other Christians who you're you feel like you're expected to get along with. Now, Christians are commanded to love everyone, but they're not commanded to like everyone. And Jesus had his 12 disciples, and then within that he had his closest circle of 3, Peter, James and John, and then he also had other people that he loved, like Lazarus. So as Christians, we're allowed to have relationships, friendships that vary in closeness, and we don't need to live up to the expectation that we need to like everyone and get on with everyone. Especially in my life, I've worked with a lot of different groups of Christians, and you can go into it thinking, wow, this is going to be great, we're all going to be best friends because we all love Jesus. But actually, you're still individual people with different strengths and weaknesses, and sometimes they don't match up very well on a surface level. So I will go into a few examples of things that have happened in my life, and I will just make a disclaimer that I'm going to make these situations very vague. I'm not going to mention names unless I know that it's okay to do so. And the only reason I'm dragging this up now is for the sake of the video, to prove a point that you won't always get on with every single Christian you meet. I don't have any resentment towards these people, I'm long past that. So I just want to make that clear that everyone I mention in this video, I respect and love them all. And also, there has been an example I really wanted to use, but when I asked someone if it was okay, they said no, which is totally fine, but that was like probably the strongest example I was going to use, so my examples might actually be even tamer than what the reality is. So that's the tea. So the first example is from when I was probably a young teenager or maybe an older child, and in church for some reason me and another girl just weren't really getting on, but I swear we didn't talk to each other that much, so I don't know how it led up to this situation. But after church, when we were mingling, it got to the point where she said, I'm going to go around the church and ask everyone if they like you. So she went off. And then when she came back, she said, yeah, I asked everyone and they all said no. And this was in front of people. So I said, okay, well, I know that you asked out this person and they rejected you. Oh gosh. And since then we became friends, and we did briefly mention it to each other years later and just kind of laughed about it and moved on. And then moving on to more like middle ground teenagehood, I was in some Christian club, and this group involved prayer, and generally I was the one who was most confident with prayer or would volunteer myself relatively quickly. Before we'd pray, generally you'd sort of go around the group and offer a few points to cover in prayer. And one time, someone quite unexpected in the group made a joke afterwards that I was a point stealer. And even though at the time it was said with like quite a light-hearted tone, I was like, you don't just joke about that, like you've said that because you've thought it. And I hadn't thought that it would go through other people's minds that I was like nicking stuff they wanted to pray for. And we've never talked about it, but it's always just sort of stuck in my mind that they said that. And my third example, and I will say I'd love to use more examples, but you know, just because this is a difficult topic and I want to respect people's privacy, I will just stick to 3. And this one I will name them because I know that Rosie won't mind. But when me and Rosie first started working together, when she came to do her gap year with Not She's for Christ and I was working there, we knew that we were sort of going to get paired together to work together on most projects, and we did not have a good first impression of each other. The first day we met, she came into the office, and it was a new office, so we didn't really have any furniture. And some of us gathered upstairs and we were all sort of talking in like an empty room which just had floating desks. So most of us were sitting on the desks or leaning against them, just chatting about the new office and the start of the year. And Rosie sat herself on the floor with her legs completely spread apart like she was about to do a teddy bear roll. And she had like a bouncy ball and she was just bouncing it to herself. And I was like looking down at her, watching her, and it just bounced away. And it was like she was cartoon. She watched the ball and then looked up, and then back at the ball. And I was just like, what is this? Not who is this? Literally, what have I got to deal with for the next year? And from Rosie's point of view, I was wearing very distinctive shoes that day, apparently. They were little white trainers with fluffy pink pom-poms from Primark. And for some reason, Rosie saw those shoes and naturally jumped to conclusions about the kind of person I was, and she thought that I was going to be one of those really popular girls who were just a bit snooty. And then after working together for the next 2 years, we became like insanely close friends, and we're still very, very close to this day. So it's okay not to click with every other Christian that you meet, but what we are commanded to do regardless is to love them. And in these examples, in retrospect, I know that I could have been more empathetic, more humble, less judgmental, so that is on me. And also, for a long time, from reading the Bible, I'd seen that God would forgive people once they had said sorry and repented. They turned away from their actions and behaved better. And I thought that I had to follow the same model. I thought, well, I don't need to forgive people unless they are sorry or they tell me that they're sorry, and that person hasn't, so I don't need to forgive them for that. I wanted to be godly, as like most Christians should want to be, and so I was trying to copy him in all situations. However, God has a greater authority than us and a greater understanding than us, and so the act of judging other people is reserved for him. So I shouldn't be judging whether or not someone else deserves my forgiveness based on whether they've said sorry or not. So from going back over those scriptures in the Bible about forgiveness, I know that I am commanded to forgive other people, otherwise why should I be forgiven? So in those examples I gave, and the ones that I'm not able to mention, I need to be forgiving all of those people in that scenario, and I also need to be forgiving myself for the role that I played. But does that mean you should allow yourself to get completely walked over by people? No. You need to be doing what's most loving for that person, for God, and for yourself. And sometimes it's more loving for you and this other person just to love each other and build each other up and encourage each other, but from a distance. You don't have to be close with everyone. You don't have to spend mountains of time with everyone, because sometimes it just doesn't work. So it's okay to step away from relationships and avoid stepping into relationships that ultimately just aren't good for you two. There have definitely been some Christians who, I don't know what it is, but when I'm in their presence, I just feel like it brings out all of my worst qualities. Sometimes I feel like they say things in a certain way and I just don't know how to respond. And I can still love them and appreciate them. We're just not really on the same wavelength. So if you are coming across other Christians that you don't like, you're not clicking with them, just make sure you are doing what you can to be Christ-like about the situation. Are you still loving them like you're commanded to? Are you still forgiving them where you need to like you're commanded to? Are you still speaking about them with kindness? Are you still building them up? Are you praying for them? If you need to step away and distance yourself a little bit, that's fine. Just make sure you're not doing that at the expense of what God has commanded you to do. So pray into your own situations and see where God has given you peace about how to act with a particular person in your life who might be challenging sometimes, and also be self-aware of where you might be challenging to other people and areas of your life where you could make it a little bit easier for others to get on with you as well. So all the best with those situations that you might be facing. Make sure to watch another video I've got called When Friendships End, which is a slightly more personal, chatty video about a specific situation I was in and all my tips and tricks, what I learned from that. And otherwise, I'll see you in another video very soon. Bye!